as long as you keep living as a genuine person, as long as you keep giving people that utmost respect that you would demand for yourself, as long as you love others like how you want to be loved, then like at the end of the day, the right people are going to come to you.
All right, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This week on the show, I sit down with my friend Gabe McQueen. Gabe is a musician and vocalist of the band Inferious, and via doing many music videos with them over the years is how I've gotten to know Gabe. But as with many friends I have on this show, we've never really had the time to really sit down and get to know one another. And of course, doing this show is the perfect place for just that. So, I am your host. My name is Ross Tyson. I am a filmmaker, a creative director, a thinker of many ideas, but of course, most importantly for this, I'm a podcaster as I bring you these open journal dives into people's lives every other Monday. And I guess another thing that I can add to that list, honestly, is horror movie lover. So I will say that we have some fun at the start of this episode and talk all about our love for horror movies for quite a bit. So it basically opens up as a horror movie review podcast for a little while. But then, of course, we dive into everything that is Gabe soon after. But before I send you off to hear all that, if you're new around here, or if you're a returning listener, either way, I want to remind you to subscribe on iTunes, follow on Spotify, follow us around social media at WYDH Pod. And of course, if you like what you hear today, just tell someone. Tell the internet by sharing it and tagging us, or go and tell me directly by leaving a review over on iTunes, or really, in general, the next time someone asks you for a podcast recommendation, maybe think of the bright yellow one. Huh? Maybe do that for me. But either way, let's just dive into it. Here it is, episode 42 of What You Don't Hear, in my conversation with Gabe McQueen. Dope. Dude, you ready to get into this real thing? Ready to dive in?
I'm ready to dive in, dude.
Let's make it happen. I'm super stoked that you were down to do this.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm happy that you even asked, man, because, I don't know, bro. I'm just really excited, honestly, to be here. Thank you so much again, dude.
Dude, thank you for being down. I was stoked when you were like, hell yes, let's make it happen. Because I feel obviously we know each other, but anytime we ever get to hang out, it's always kind of through work means, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? We're shooting music videos, promos, whatever it is for the band.
Right.
So I feel like we've never been able to take that kind of deep dive of really getting to know one another.
Definitely.
And this is the perfect place for it.
Now is that time.
I was stoked that you were down. We also just spent, spoilers, folks, 20 minutes talking about horror movies before we started.
Oh, hell yeah, dog.
so that, we kind of cashed that out of the bank a little bit, a bunch. So I was like, let's just save this.
Yes.
We gotta dive back in, because that was even one thing I remember coming into this. I was like, I wonder if we're gonna talk about horror movies, because I couldn't remember if you were a super big horror fan or not.
Oh, I think especially around the time that I met you, that was when I was because I grew up sheltered, so when I first met you, that was around the time that I was just all right, fucking horror movies, this is it. I was watching, at least, I was going through all of them, good or bad. I just wanted to see, what was created. And then, especially see, what I missed growing up more so.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And that's, I was trying to think back to, whenever we were on a video production or something like that, and I'm I feel because sometimes I have an awesome memory, other times I have the worst memory in the world.
Dude, I completely understand.
So I would think back and I'm did Gabe and I kind of bond over horror movies? I can't really remember. And it's also funny because the answer is also yes, because so many Inferious videos have been horror inspired. You were in one of them.
I think during the Evolution shoot, that was one of the days that we actually had horror movie talk for real.
Yes.
Because I think it was just especially the day where you were filming me for the B-roll, and then you were talking to me about oh, I forget what movie it was. It was on Netflix, and it has a white triangle on the cover. I watched. It's like a white triangle, black tentacles coming out.
The Void?
Yes.
The Void. Yeah.
That's what the influence of the video. I think he was saying like, oh, I've seen this movie, and I'm gonna try and like, use some influence from there.
It was the wires coming out of the body.
Yes.
It felt very like tentacle, weird. Like,
Yes.
that's where I was taking that from.
And from there, 100%. I was like, oh, word. And I think we just got to talking like, oh man. I mean, I've watched way more horror movies since, so I think we're gonna have a little bit of a thicker conversation when it comes to that.
Right. Well, that's like even before we even started rolling, like we were talking, we dove in so deeply of like, yeah, what do you think of this movie? What do you think of that movie? Like talking all that stuff. And listen, anytime I can find an excuse to make this a horror themed podcast, I'm always down. Like, I am 100% always down. Actually, on that note, have you watched Fear Street yet?
Fear Street? I have not.
Okay.
Is it Netflix original?
Yes.
Okay.
So definitely, it's funny because by the time this episode releases, future you will probably have watched Fear Street.
Yes.
But current you definitely needs to.
Is it like, so it's a series or a movie?
So it is both. I'm trying to think of like, I can't think of the word of actually how to explain it, but like it's an anthology of movies.
Gotcha.
It's a trilogy of movies, but like they all lead into one another just like a series would.
Okay.
So rather than like the normal thing of like this movie comes out here and 3 years later we do the follow up, like this one has just been, they've been dropping them once a week and there's 3 parts. Dude, it's so good.
All right.
It is so good. It's like, it feels like it lives in like the Stranger Things universe. But it leans more into paranormal, like slasher feeling than like paranormal sci-fi, like monster.
Yeah, definitely.
But I feel like you'll like it. And like at the time of us recording this, part 3, the final part, actually comes out tomorrow. So I'm time stamping this episode now. People are gonna listen to it like this was recorded on this day. But yes, I highly recommend watching Fear Street because I mean, before we started rolling, like we were talking about things like It and all that sort of stuff of like how modern horror has that very
campy aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's not like the old school type of campy that's like fun.
It's like it's like they gotta have their quirks because now it seems, especially, I don't know, bro. I've noticed it in commercials and I've noticed it in more TV shows and in more movies that like quirky is just it. And I feel like, especially in certain horror movies, they just gotta like add their like little comedic, like quirky humor in order to, or not, it doesn't even have to be humor, but just something like weird that would like make some people laugh, like how we were talking about what is it, Richie from It?
Yeah.
The new version, and how he just like every other scene is just like, your fucking mom, like.
Yeah, and it's like the scenes are cool and the movie is cool, but like you're taking me out of it whenever you have to like force a joke into something.
Exactly.
And it like, I'm like, wait, like, I'm afraid watching it, and I'm also afraid for you, the characters, but are you actually even afraid? And like, I understand the deep dive into that somebody could uncover is like, well, some people use humor to cope with things. Yeah, so like, I get it, and I understand that's where his character comes from, but I'm also like, just tone it down.
Just a little bit.
Like, tone it down. But I feel like the reason I even brought like It back up is like, Fear Street is like a modern, feeling thing, even though like all the stories take place like years and years ago through different decades, but like they're like in stuff like that type of like humor, they like use the right way.
Yeah.
Like when things are supposed to be funny, they're funny, or they sneak them in at the right times when it actually kind of makes sense to make that like right type of campiness.
Exactly.
I mean? Like,
my favorite, I think, example of that is in Halloween, where literally Michael, he's just in that room with like a sheet over his head and it's just the eye holes in it. Like, I thought that was like perfectly like funny. Like, it's the Halloween costume, like typical Halloween ghost costume. So of course, but it's just like, what's coming up, but it's just like him in that, like, I don't know, him in that like sheet. I don't know. Every time I see it, it just makes me laugh. Or like the thought of like, just, I don't know. This is not supposed to be funny in the movie, but it still makes me laugh to this day when he's driving and you just like, there's a scene where he's driving and he's just like, I just start laughing because I'm like, was he breathing like that on the entire trip?
Right. Right. Or was it just when he got near his like victims and he was like, okay, I'm getting stoked now. Like, yeah, but it's also funny to me that he drove in the first one anyway.
Right.
Like that you see it, which is weird because then you think about that and you're like, okay, like, so the shape, is what like, like they referred to him as like I guess was it supposed to be like just a normal human being who's a serial killer, and then it got turned into like Michael Myers, this power, this aura, this like paranormal thing. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like it's interesting to like look back at that, and especially see like a driving scene. You're like, I guess that's probably how he gets from one place to another so quickly when we don't see him. Like, I guess he's just driving around. What did you think of the Halloween remake?
I've watched it a couple times since its release. I actually think it's pretty decent. Mm-hmm. I think they're supposed to like come out with another one, aren't they?
It's two more.
Two more?
Yep.
So like, see, and I knew because it's like it ended with him getting burned in that fire, and I'm pretty sure there was a movie before where that happened and he still didn't die. So it's like, I was like, all right, perfect setup. So the things that I liked and took away from it was just like, we got to see Laurie grown up and like kind of see how her being traumatized by the shape affected her future generations, like her, I don't know. If you haven't watched it now, I'm sorry. It's your own fault.
Yeah, listen, just fast forward if you want to get to like the other stuff.
Yeah, like, I don't know. You just see the relationship between her daughter and her granddaughter and just like how just encountering the shape has like basically affected all their relationships and such. I honestly love that, you know, because that's like a good dimension of storytelling that I feel like I don't think that people are failing to, but I think that's something that I really appreciate is like, all right, we have this. I think you even see it in some of the Marvel movies, especially before fucking Disney bought it out. Like, perfect example. After the first Avengers movie, they released Iron Man 3, right? And you see how he basically still is freaking out from the attack in New York City. I love shit like that where it's like, all right, his relationship's kind of grown. He's a little worn out, but it's like, this is what you see. It shows like a realistic aspect of like, this is what you deal with when dealing with A trauma or B trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, like even in Halloween, like, that they effectively erased so many of the movies from like being canon, right?
Yes.
But I love that they address it in fun ways in the movie. Like when the granddaughter and her friends like walking down the sidewalk and she's like, oh, my grandma's freaking out. I guess, she gets worried every Halloween that Michael Myers is going to come back. One of her friends goes, it wasn't he her brother?
Yeah.
Because they do that in the later movies, but now they're saying that those movies don't exist. And I love that they handle that of just like, isn't he her brother? And she's like, no, that's a dumb rumor people made up.
Man,
that's a fun way to handle
right
like getting rid of that situation and acknowledging past things that have happened, but also saying like, okay, in our new movie, because I think the idea is in the new Halloween, it's supposed to be the only thing that exists after the original Halloween.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure from like 2 on doesn't technically exist in this universe.
So this one, the remake, I'm pretty sure Wes Craven had a hand in it rather than like the ones that I don't know, because I'm still like learning. So after the first Halloween, after that, the ones that they like scrapped off, did Wes Craven not really have a hand in it, or just like less of a hand in it than like the first one?
I might be getting things twisted. Do you mean John Carpenter?
My bad.
John Carpenter. Okay,
my bad.
Yes. Wes Craven is Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, that sort of stuff.
Yes, thank you.
John Carpenter, though, yes. So
thank you.
I can see that's what you're asking for sure. Yes. So that's the cool thing about the Halloween remake is they brought back like as much of the same team that they could, like from the original.
That's good.
So yeah, like he had a part in it, and like it's weird. Like again, there's so many cool things with Halloween.
Definitely.
But and folks listening, like, listen, hey, we're gonna get to the deep dive story. Like
it's coming soon. Just stay tuned.
We're gonna get to know Gabe a little bit better. Right now, we're getting to know what he thinks about horror movies, and I never get to talk about horror movies on this show.
Man, this so is the time now. Like,
so the thing that there's a lot of stuff actually that I didn't like about the new Halloween. So like for every cool thing, there was like 1 or 2 things that I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it like again, like we were talking before we started recording, it like tiptoed that line. Where I was like, okay, 50% is really cool, and then 50% I'm just like, that's dumb. Like, so to me, again, folks, spoilers. Like, if you haven't like watch this yet, like fast forward. If you don't like horror movies, I'm sorry, fast forward. Like there's gonna be some spoilers here.
You could probably find it on YouTube or some shit. Like
exactly, like it's been out for a couple of years. So,
Yeah.
and if you are a big horror fan and you're worried about spoilers, you're not that big a horror fan if you haven't watched it yet. Exactly. There's the point. The ending, like now I understand they probably went into making that movie with, hey, we're gonna make more. Like we're gonna make 2 more.
Definitely.
Like they probably already had that decided. Maybe, I don't know. To me though, like I wish it would have ended with Laurie and Michael Myers both going down like together.
Right.
Like I wish she would have like got her daughter and granddaughter like out of the house, and they're like, all right, come on, and she does the classic like hero sacrifice, like locks herself like on the basement stairs or something, and they're like, no, what are you doing? You know, and then like you get that final moment of her being like, this is the only, like, he wants me, and if I want him dead, like, it has to be both of us.
Exactly.
And, like, do this big, like, badass, like, they both go down in the flame, like, and, you know, I don't know, do something kind of actiony and fun where she, like, tackles him down the stairs or some shit. Like,
literally.
You know what I mean? Like, do something like that, and, like, had it ended with also ending Laurie's character arc, I would have been like, that felt like a full circle moment.
Definitely, because it's like she spent, especially in the old movies, it's like she spent so many years, and even not just her, like I think law enforcement, I don't know, a lot of people, I don't know, he spent so many years existing, running, and like just like coming back in weird, crazy ways, and I feel like that would definitely be like a perfect full circle moment too. I think that like, I don't know. I think they did that just to get money out of it, which
for sure
isn't bad in essence,
like,
but like I feel like that would be way more pleasing to see.
For sure. Like it gives you that like closure. It gives you that like, oh wow, because like it's also like you walk away from that movie feeling you emotionally feel something. And
right.
It's not just like, hey, that was a fun movie, but like when you can walk away being like, I just watched Laurie die.
Like damn, this legacy is like
yeah, like I saw like closure to that, but then like they do the whole like they get out, he, you know, burns in the fire, and as they're driving away, like this was something that didn't make any sense to me, and I understand that like they were probably just doing it to like tease like we're gonna make more movies, but the way that they did it also didn't make any sense. Where like they're in the back of the truck,
yeah,
the daughter Laurie and the granddaughter, granddaughter's holding that big butcher knife, and like they like slow zoom in on the knife. And like what it kind of said to me was they were alluding that the granddaughter was like gonna become a murderer.
That's yeah.
Like it's like did the evil get to her? Like is she traumatized and is she gonna do something evil now because she's holding the knife? The legacy lives on. Like
right.
And I was like, that's not what I need out of this.
Like I don't want another shape. Like no, I mean, like I don't know. Evil does take different shapes, so that would be an interesting way, an interesting take.
I'm down for that, but it's like. I don't need like and clearly I mean like we've seen I don't know how much of the new teaser stuff for the new Halloweens that are upcoming you've seen or whatever, but like I mean he's back, like literally the teaser is firefighters going to the house and he kills all the firefighters and it leaves the house.
What the? Oh man.
So like again, that's dope, that's fun, classic Michael Myers, classic undead like monster, like back from the dead, you can't kill him, and he is just like lust for murder is just keeping him alive. That's fun. But I'm also like, all right, y'all, like we're going crazy with this, and like so then it's like, okay, why do we allude to the granddaughter? Like, and again, the movie's not even out, so I can't judge the next movie. But I also don't like that I know that there's 2 more.
That's the thing. I wonder I feel like if they're gonna do 2 more, then sorry, my bad. I was trying to readjust myself in my seat. If they're trying to do 2 more, then like I feel like if that's the case, just judging from that shot of their daughter or the granddaughter, I would say that like maybe she would become like I would say she might become the next Laurie,
which totally
her
makes
daughter
sense.
like I don't spoilers again. Sorry guys, where her daughter failed in that essence, I feel like her Laurie's granddaughter would pick that up.
She'll be able to step up and yes, so like if that's what like the kind of like knife is alluding to and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, okay, I can understand like the spirit is going to be passed on to her of like she will be now the one that can stand up to Michael Myers and all that sort of stuff. And
Definitely.
Again, could I see it going that way? Totally. But I feel like the way that movie like pieced some of those things together, I'm like, okay, like I just don't understand like that right. Whole scene where I think it's the doctor, the new Loomis.
Yes.
which is funny because that scene, that's another callback that I love where Lori says that. She's like, oh, you're the new Loomis. And I was like, that's a fun way to like literally directly say something, but also like make it something that's funny.
Exactly.
But it's funny within the context of what it needs to be. Anyway, where that doctor turns evil for a scene.
I was just like,
and then immediately dies. Like those are the things that I'm like, why did that happen? Was it just to get body count up? Which is like, okay, that's fine. But like, he still could have killed him without him being an evil person first.
Exactly. Like it was going to happen either way, whether because from what I understand, if you're standing in the shape's way, like you're going down.
Exactly.
Regardless.
Right.
Whether you're on his side or not. I think that dude is so like evil. He can't even tell who's on his side or not. He's just kill.
Exactly. It does not matter. So it's like, cool, these people are around him, so yes, he's going to kill them anyway. Mm-hmm. But they do that whole scene where the doctor's like driving with the granddaughter, and then like something happens where like I can't remember if they crash or they may crash. Oh, they crash into Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And then they get out, and then all of a sudden the doctor takes his mask and holds it in his hands and is like, Michael, I'm gonna. And I was like, oh, hold on a second. Like, and again, if we want to dig really deep, maybe it's the evil spirit, the aura of what keeps Michael Myers alive. Like, maybe that's almost encapsulated, it's capturing him and it's going to make him turn evil. I can understand if you want to take that deep of a dive.
Yeah.
But
it was too much going on already.
It's also, like, if you want to dig that deep, like, wouldn't anyone who's around Michael Myers ever turn evil?
Like Loomis would have turned evil at that point.
Exactly. So it's like, why is this new dude?
Lori at some point would have been like, all right,
I'll help you. Like, we're a team now, brother and sister team. Like, it's like, so for that to just, it was kind of just like they needed random stuff for scenes. And I'm like, dude, if you have something like Halloween, like in these other scenes, you're proving to me you can make cool stuff. But some of it definitely just felt like weird filler. That's how I felt with it.
Yes, definitely.
It's like some of it felt like really freaking dope. And other stuff felt like, wait, did you have to do that way?
Exactly.
Like, and I mean, I could ramble on and on about all these things. And then the whole 2 hours of this podcast could be about horror movie reviews.
We just need our own horror episode where we just like the entire 2 hours. It's just
I am so freaking down for that. What is I'm going to stay on it for a second. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like your favorite type of horror has been? Like, since you're kind of fresh over the last handful of years getting into it, like, have you leaned a certain way? Like,
so my preference more so is like the psychological type. I do like the supernatural type of horrors, but I feel like there's a lot of horror movies, especially nowadays, especially what you see on Netflix and Hulu. It's like, I always say it follows the Exorcist formula, where it's like, or the Poltergeist formula, where it's like, oh, we move into this house. Oh, there's an evil presence in this house. It takes over one of us, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Like, after you've seen so many B movies that are like with that format, and then I don't know, I see more B movies with that format than I see movies that actually were really good that I have that format. I feel like, I don't know, something about the psychological side just pushes me towards it. The psychological I feel like that gives me more of a thrill than like the supernatural side.
Yeah. More than like the crazy jump scares or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. Well, that's like, again, before we were rolling, we were talking about Hereditary.
Yes.
Like, that is like, I think that's taken like top tier spot of like horror movie for me.
I think so too. That was like, I think that one is like I don't want to say that's like the last really good like horror movie that came out recent years. I haven't seen Fear Street, so that's not until I've seen Fear Street. I'm keeping that out there, but like I think that's like the last really good one that I've seen like in theaters and just been like, wow, I'm still freaked out.
Watching Hereditary, like, I felt that movie for a couple days after I watched it.
Yes.
And that to me is like when a movie is way cooler, when, like I was saying with like what I wish the Halloween ending would have been, like when I can leave a movie feeling like, whether it's weird, uncomfortable, still scared, sad, like whatever it is, like when I can leave the theater or leave watching a movie being like, oh my God, like,
right.
Wow. No, I feel that. Like, that's what Hereditary did. So it's like I feel like that has become my bar.
Yes.
Of like, and that's an unfair comparison. I'm not gonna like, because different movies are different types of movies. Like, and I understand that. But like anything that sort of feels like Hereditary, I'm like, okay, this is where the bar has been set.
I'm gonna pay attention a little bit more. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
I think Hereditary was like the last. Okay, so I think Hereditary was one of those movies that gave me that feeling. However, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw, okay, so the first Jeepers Creepers, great. Other two, I could live without.
Yeah, especially number 3. 3 is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
It never should have been created. In
it
my
literally
opinion.
shouldn't. Like 2 is fun more than it is like scary.
Yeah.
3 is literally a pile of garbage.
3 is literally like the Crazies, but with the Jeepers Creepers, dude. And then they all of a sudden just decided to loop it back to 2 for whatever reason.
Oh yeah,
and I was
with
like,
the bus ending at the or pulling up at the end or whatever.
And like after watching it, I kind of like understand how that makes sense, but at the same time, I'm just like, why did you do that? Like,
yeah,
it could have been its own thing. Like it wasn't that. Well, sorry, it wasn't that like. I don't know. It wasn't the best of the series, but it still could have been its own thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like they changed the look of the creeper. Like he's wearing this like bright red shirt, and like he looks more fake. Like it just looks like a dude wearing a costume at that point. And I'm like, and then they did the weird like psychic powers.
Oh yeah,
do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Like I hate because like I've dissected this movie too much. So I did a whole episode of Poltergeist on it when I used to do that podcast. Like we reviewed Jeepers Creepers 3. It's like I took a deep dive into it, but like like so much of that movie is terrible because they do the psychic thing where like isn't his hand chopped off?
Yeah.
And then, like they hold it and then it like starts like
it shows them
or something.
Yeah, like I think if I remember correctly, like because I remember an old lady had it and she was just like fucking crazy, you know. She was just like, and she had like the bag too with the hand, and the hand was moving, and I think the cop in the movie, like the sheriff in the movie, he touched it, and I think he was able to see like how it was like severed off.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly.
None of the other movies did anything like, yes, it's paranormal. Yes, there's like weird sight, you know, whatever, like things, powers that it has. But like none of it ever says psychic ability.
None at all.
Like none of it is like, yes, if you hold its hand, you can see the future.
It's like, I see it as like more so like a monkey's paw relic where it's like, it's got all this dark energy and magic. Well, depending on where it comes from. It could have dark energy and magic surrounding it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I viewed it, which is like an interesting take, but still, I just felt like it just ruined the vibe of how Jeepers Creepers is. It's like I would expect him to like at least like, and he did. He came out, he fed a bit, you know. However, I just felt like they should have did something more. I don't know how I can say it. They should have just focused more on like actually fucking dude up, I feel like, than like using that as like a plot point for the movie, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And
then, like towards the end, they do this whole like big sword fight thing. Remember that was like an action karate movie.
Oh
thing
yeah,
almost.
they did like a sword fight, and then like I think wasn't it the sheriff who like he rode in on like it wasn't a tank, but it was like he had like some kind of machine gun on the back of like some RV or something. Trying to shoot at him and it didn't work. They just gave him the saddest death of the entire movie, and I was like, man, like he really didn't have to do that. But I mean, he did for plot's sake, but he could have. I don't know, bro.
Because in the first one, it's genuinely scary.
Yes,
you're like, who or what is this creeper thing? Like it feeds every 23 years. Like what?
And then that jingle especially got me. Like that was, I think that was like the perfect layout of a horror movie. Because after watching that first one, I shit you not, I was like, I gotta watch something happy after this, man. Like, this freaked me out. Like,
see, unfortunately, that's how I felt after watching 3, but just because I was so angry.
Yeah,
it's like I need to watch something happy now. What the heck?
Like, jeez. I think like the first one was definitely perfect, and I think it like delved into more of the fact that like. I don't know. I like that it delved more. Like the first one did perfect in like diving into his backstory, and then just like him hunting his prey. I think that was like the best part of the movie for me too. That like got me on the edge of my seat is just like knowing he's coming,
Right.
but you don't know how. You don't know when that jingle is gonna come on, bro. All you know is that when that song comes on, it's your life, dude.
Yep.
Or you better get out of there real quick. Like,
Yep. And like you never feel safe throughout watching that movie. When you're with the two main characters, like even when they're at the police station, you're still like, where's he at? Like, when's he show up though? Because then it immediately like power goes off, he shows up, all that sort of stuff. Like it never lets you feel like, oh yeah, no, they're gonna get away. This is fine.
yeah, like I was, especially when they were at the police station. I think that's when my anxiety was at an all-time high, and I was like, okay, what's going on now? Like, all right, everybody's moving too slow. Like, we need to get out of here. We need to go. Like, and then everything went off, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just have to sit and watch their consequences. Like, here we go. Like, and then after that, I was just like, dog, I don't know how to feel anymore. Like,
Do you remember what your first introduction to horror was? Because you said, you'd been sheltered forever, and you were finally like, I can finally watch horror movies or whatever it was. Do you remember what was your initial dive? Like, what were you like, this is it?
So I'm gonna answer this question two ways. My very first horror movie was World War Z, even though it's PG-13. I still technically consider it a horror since it's got zombies in it.
It's a zombie movie, yeah.
I watched that when I was like a senior in high school. Of course, so little backstory, my parents are both pastors. So growing up in a Christian house, nothing, like we couldn't watch anything horror related. If a horror movie trailer even came on, my mom was like, turn that shit off. So I think at that point I was still in the house, but I was like, all right, like this is pretty, like, even though it freaked me out, it was still pretty cool. And then, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to name this person the Demon, because I don't like to name drop. It's an ex-girlfriend, but in all actuality, she was the one that got me into horror movies. I think the very first one we ever really watched, oh man, that's a good question. Okay, it was either The Conjuring or Insidious that she showed me.
Okay.
One of those two, because both of those I think are prime movies. I think once I saw those two, I was like, all right, like I like horror now. Like, what else is there? And then I started going into, like, from there and on, I started watching Sinister, and then I went through all the old like 80s movies like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Did I watch Friday the 13th? I did watch Friday the 13th. I fell asleep, but I watched it.
That's fair.
I was up late and I smoked too much, so I passed out. I just went on and on, watched all of, like, I even have Kodi too, which is like this app on my Fire Stick. So basically it lets me watch whatever TV show, movie, well, quote unquote, whatever. If it has a stream of it, I can watch at will whatever movie I want to watch. So that's when I actually did the deep dive and just went through like all the I tried to watch all of John Carpenter's sorry, my mouth doesn't like to work. John Carpenter's movies. I've even seen some Wes Craven ones. I think another good John Carpenter movie I like, I'm trying to remember the name of it, where it's like it's Loomis and he's this priest, right?
Okay.
And like he gets like this team of scientists to like work on this experiment that's at the bottom of this church, like the basement of this church. It's this green fluid in this like big tube, and they said that it's like basically the Antichrist, and that it's due to open at any point, but they don't, like, the team of scientists is supposed to figure out when that was, like when it's supposed to open more so, and how to stop it. And it was a bunch of like time travel shit going on with it too.
Okay. I can't think of what that is.
I'm trying to remember too, but that was a really good one.
Yeah.
Literally, like, Loomis is this like priest. I'll figure it out. I'll get it to you.
It'll come up at some point. Later on, when we're in like a really deep part of your story where you're like talking about a struggle, you're like, the movie's this, by the way.
Exactly. That's what's going to happen.
Snap us out. What was it like when you were diving through those? And less from like the, horror movies are cool, but like, were you just like, did you feel like freedom in that? Were you like finally like, because I mean, clearly, yes, you were attracted to the horror genre because I mean, we just sat for the first half hour of this podcast and talked about it.
Definitely.
But like, how did you feel during that moment where you were like, look at all this stuff I've been missing out on? Like,
I honestly, I feel the same way with like even the music, because like now I'm just in a period, like again I have all this, I'm sheltered, so like I wasn't allowed to watch certain movies, listen to certain music, not allowed to like do certain things, you know. So like now it's like, especially with that deep dive, I was just like, man, this is like freedom. And then also it's just like my parents were freaking out about like nothing, dog. Like I get like as soon as like the thing for them is like as soon as they hear the word demon, witch, spirit, anything along those lines, they're like, shut it off, bro. And just to like go back through and watch all the movies and realize like they were actually freaking out about nothing. Like, yeah, it's got these references, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like it's a movie.
Yeah, what is that going to do to me? Really?
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to get possessed by watching it or something.
It's not like The Ring or like anything else where it's like, exactly, I get possessed by watching it or some shit's going to happen because I watched the movie.
Yeah.
And so once I think that was like also an anxiety I had when I first started the horror movie and like started like diving into horror movies. But then it like the more and more I watched, it just faded away. And I'm a person that I love story. Like I love movies, honestly. Like I love the story behind it. I love seeing the dynamics behind characters and such. And even just seeing like how they just take the plot from beginning to end, because I write my own stories too. So I like to take it all in and study it and see how they like, you know, how things are executed. And then from there, I just get extra critical. So some horror, especially some of the top tier horror movies like Hereditary and I would say Insidious and Conjuring, I think more so, especially when in that deep dive, just watching all those horror movies, I felt like, I don't know, it was like helping me brush up on my storytelling a bit more, you know, especially since there was a lot of examples of like, okay, this is kind of corny, you know, upon watching it, you know, like, okay, this is kind of corny. I don't want to do this with my story, or like, I think they could have like done this a little stronger. Like maybe I should like with whatever I'm writing, I could do a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think more so I think it unlocked a new side of myself for real.
Yeah.
Cause it's something that I deeply love, you know, and like something that I think it's like I'm in the period where I'm like somewhat, like I said, I'm in the period where I'm like going through and like just basically going through and just like seeing everything that I kind of missed out on growing up and just kind of like figuring out myself from there. And I realized, like, I think after taking that deep dive, I realized like, this is who I am. Like, I love horror movies. Like, and I think that was like, I don't know, even though the demon is somebody I would never want to remember again, that's one of the things that I think is really good that I take away from them. Like, they showed me a side of myself that I never knew. And like, I can kind of see it in my other family too, because like my mom, she was the main enforcer of that rule, but she used to love Stephen King. Like read his books, all of them, before she became a Christian and everything. So like, and I even told her, I said, Mom, like if you never became a Christian, you would be a horror fan like me. And she was like, yeah, I know, and that's why I'm saved by the grace of God. And I'm like, all right, Mom, like, conversation over, let's go.
You're like, but have you seen Hereditary though? Like, it's a really good movie.
No, I can't put my mom through that. I cannot, because she would, oh man, she would have a spasm.
That would be not a good entry level, like, not at all.
Not at all.
Okay, so when you're saying it influences like your storytelling, do you mean that through like the way you tell story through song, or is there a huge thing that I'm either forgetting we've talked about or that I don't know about you when you say crafting stories? Like,
so it helps with my songwriting, because some of the stuff that we do, not all, but some of the stuff we do is like conceptual. I also make my own comics, which when I was listening to your podcast, I was like, oh, this dude used to make comics. Like, so I'm like in the process of like, for the past 3 years, I would say I've been like workshopping my own story more so, just like kind of been in the process of like scrapping it all up, restarting it, kind of restructure everything, flesh everything out. So that way, once I get to actually drawing it, then I know where I'm going. And especially with the plot, there's no plot holes. It's nothing that's going to be like, at least for the reader, it's going to be like, all right, this is too dry. You know, I just want just the right amount of drama, just the right amount of action. But like, I also don't want to have too much exposition. You know, just everything just needs to be perfect more so.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of, when I watch movies, I kind of like use that with my storytelling and even TV shows. Like that's like something, I guess, about me that nobody, well, only a select few really know that I draw. People, I mean, if you follow me online, you've probably seen my art. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things. It's like I'm trying to make a comic and put it online, try and make money from it. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. I want to talk more after we stop recording because I may or may not be trying to make a comic book as well.
Okay.
But I don't like talking about things too much if I don't know they're going to happen. So I want to bond with you over that as well after we're done.
Sounds great.
When did you start drawing?
I started drawing around, so let's see, I've always hopped around from like doing musical stuff and like drawing as a kid. Like as a kid, I would do the old like pots and pans with like the spoons, you know, like act like I was playing drums, you know. I think I even colored on some of my parents' walls as a kid, you know. I think when I actually decided to take it serious was around second grade. And at that time, everybody in my class was like into like, at least the boys was like into Transformers, fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, and like my best friend at the time, my day one, Freddie, if you're listening, he's here in the city, but Freddie, if you're listening, I love you. He taught me how to draw. He pretty much got me started then. He showed me how to draw Sonic. And from then on, I like kind of moved to my own taste. I think like fourth grade, that's when I bought my first like how to draw manga book. And from then on, I just would like copy everything that I see, like not even tracing, but just like redraw in my own way. I would take even like, I don't know, even eventually I took influences from like my favorite manga and anime artists, like Full Metal Alchemist, the artist for that one, the artist from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and like, let's say, I'm going to say for now, for time's sake, One Punch Man, like that artist too. Like those three, I kind of like look to them for influence, because I don't know, just seeing how they draw everything out in comic book format, I'm just like, I'm going to get there soon. I want to do this, but like for now, I just need to learn the fundamentals, the basics, you know, the principles, make sure all the proportions are right and whatnot, you know. But since fourth grade, that's how long I've been drawing, I would say.
Nice. I love that. We have that in common too.
Yes.
Because that was like growing up, that was like my thing, was drawing. And I was like oddly good at it, and I would do the same thing. Like I would grow up, like make my own comics, like reference a bunch of stuff. My big thing was like pro wrestling, so like I would just like reference pro wrestlers all the time, make my own comic books out of them, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, we've got that in common, where like the drawing thing is kind of at the roots. So while you're growing up, you're discovering these like drawing abilities, and you're also dabbling with music.
Yeah.
But you've also mentioned like both parents were pastors, you said, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so you're growing up, you said, very sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to that. What is growing up like in that sort of a household?
Oh boy. Let me hit the jewel pod for this one. Yeah. I'm going to take an extra long like hit just for like dramatic effect.
Perfect.
Because for the viewers, I don't know, bro. I'm about to unpack a lot of stuff. Beautiful. And like, you know, I always tell my parents, like, you know, I don't know. I hear some of the shit that some of my cousins, because, you know, my family is all super religious and shit. Okay. And so, you know, I've even heard about how some cousins say like, oh, you ruined our life because like you wouldn't let us do this and this and this because you're Christian. And I'm just like y'all didn't actually like fuck my life up in any way. Like, I'm actually glad you guys taught me this. I can't find my jewel, so fuck it. We're gonna save that. Oh wait, here it is. All right, my keys were hiding it.
We got it. I'm gonna take this clip of the podcast. I'll send it to Jewel and be like, "Hey, sponsorship money,
please sponsor me, Jewel."
Yeah, sponsor Gabe. Send him a bunch of stuff and then send me money.
I got a pack in my pocket right here. You know you hit my line, dog. All right. So now growing up in a Christian household as Gabe McQueen, honestly, it was not that bad. Like, I don't know. Especially growing up. Now, so here's the thing. It wasn't a bad time growing up under their like household, but I will say that it definitely like, well, here's the thing that me and my sister's talking about in something that I even learned because I see a therapist. So like growing up in a Christian household, especially as a pastor's kid, if anybody else who is listening, they can also relate. Any pastor's kids who are listening, you can also relate. It's kind of or just Christian household more so. Traumatic, but not the bad traumatic, like how one who grew up with an abusive family faced. It's kind of like we kind of didn't experience a lot. It kind of I would say a chunk of figuring out who I was in my life, or at least the time that I should have figured out who I was in my life, kind of got taken away because the things that I like now and the things that are a part of me now that I consider like, this is Gabe McQueen, take me as I am or leave. I'm always willing to grow, but this is Gabe McQueen at its core. I think was kind of like, I feel like I was kind of stunted in growth in that way more so. Like I didn't get to experience a lot of things that a lot of kids didn't. I think I've been in church for pretty much all my life. Like literally the rule is every Sunday we had to go. If you were under that roof, you had to go. I think when they first became pastors, I was first grade, so I was 6 at the time. And I was going to a Christian school, so I thought having parents who were pastors was like the coolest thing ever, because like everybody respects pastors, in my mind at that time. So I was like telling everybody like, oh, my dad's going to become a pastor for a church, and everybody was like, oh, cool, that's nice, I'll visit. After that, it kind of became more of like, after some years, it became more of like, not so much a like thing to be. It's not that I'm not proud of them for doing something that they feel like they're called to. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to shit on them for it at all. And I'm not going to talk about it at all. But I feel like it got to a point where it's like, my parents are actually pastors. That kind of like, that kind of sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Because again, I wasn't allowed to do a lot. I wasn't allowed to see a lot. I wasn't allowed to experience. It's not that I wasn't allowed to experience a lot. I still had a good childhood growing up, It was just like, I wasn't like all these artists. Now we can consider them throwback artists. So from the era, I was born in 96. So let's say from the era, I would say anything from then on, even before, unless it was like soul, R&B, or Motown music. And from that era to, I would say around the time I was like 17 or 18, that's when I was finally like, fuck it, I'm going to just start listening to my own shit, It was, I wasn't allowed to, I was only allowed to listen to Christian music at a certain amount of time, especially with metalcore. And, especially early metalcore, I found a way to get through that because a lot of those OG bands were quote unquote Christian at that time.
Okay.
However, I couldn't relate to a lot of people when throwback artists would play. So like, people would put on Ludacris or like put on like Jibs or like, I don't know. The only throwback artist that I actually know not front to back is Soulja Boy, Crank That, and that's because like literally when I was in 6th grade, that's all they bumped on recess. So I don't know any of those throwback artists and throwback songs. I just didn't know. And same with movies. I just didn't know. I missed a lot. And so I was really not included in a lot growing up, especially in school, because, like I had parents for pastors and I wasn't allowed to do a lot,
Okay. So I guess even maybe like the way that you're kind of explaining it is like, it wasn't necessarily like a bad life or anything. It was just a life through a different lens.
Yes, definitely.
That was so. It's like, it's not that you're not necessarily not allowed to go experience these things. It's just you're experiencing things through this lens of life.
Definitely.
So that's what you're taking in. That's what you're absorbing as you're growing up. Now, I know this is like a dive deep into your memories thing.
Yeah.
If you can't remember, it's fine. But like,
Bring it.
do you like? Looking back now, you can identify these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can identify like, oh yeah, okay, I was sheltered a little bit. I was missing out on movies and pop culture and lived a different life.
Yeah.
During growing up in that, when do you feel like you started to notice that? Because you also explained like at first it was like, my parents are pastors, that's so sick. And then at some point you're like, oh my parents are pastors. Like, cool, I love them and respect them and they're awesome. But now I'm starting to notice like I'm missing out on some things. Like when did that start to pop up? Like when did you actively in the moment start to kind of notice? Or was it not until complete retrospect, like later on when you're an adult?
I would say it started, let's see, because I went to private school for, I would say so after I left Goddard, let's say, so I did preschool and kindergarten in a private school. Like it was a private, so there's a school in Cincinnati, and then they literally were like preschool and kindergarten all the way up to, I would say 4th grade. So I was there from literally preschool, kindergarten, all the way to 3rd grade. And then after I got bullied quite a bit growing up, So especially at that school, which is like, I mean, kids are terrible, so they're shitty. So it doesn't matter what environment you put them in, they're going to be shitty.
Was that, sorry to interrupt?
No,
like,
you're good.
You're good. I know you're trying to like remember things. Was it because like, was it the pastor like sheltered life thing? Like, was it?
It was more so the fact that I got bullied because I think I was like more, so I have 3 sisters, right? I'm the only boy. And I think at that time I was a little bit more flamboyant than the other boys. Like they call me gay and all this and that, and I'm not, like, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, that's where it kind of like started, I was just more so like, I was like more out there than them, I sang a lot more than them, they were like more stoic, and I would just like have a lot more energy than them. And so that's when the bullying started it.
Okay.
I would say that started first grade, that's when it started. And then we had to move after I completed 3rd grade because upon starting, it had to have been like between 2nd or 3rd grade, because that's when it got bad. And I'm not sure how it got worse, but they kept coming and coming, and like I just dealt with it. But it got to a point like where I grew a bald spot like right here on my left, like my left side of my head, and it was just due to stress from being bullied. So we had to move to a different school. It was like a public school, but my parents still wanted like a good education for me. So we moved to like, I would say from like going someplace in Cincinnati to somewhere, I would say like 30, 40 minutes north up. That's more suburban. I still got bullied at that school in 4th grade, but it went away. Like it wasn't as bad, but like no matter where I went, like after that I moved so I went to Lakota, then from there I went to Fairfield, and then pretty much stayed there till I graduated high school. And I like pretty much no matter where I went, I got bullied just because like I was different. And people, kids, when they see you're different, they're gonna be like, oh, this boy right here, let's rip into him, and it's at that point I think it did like kind of hurt me, but now it's like I feel like going through that is kind of like strengthened me too, because it's kind of given me more of an independence more so. However, I'm sorry, what was the question? Again, my bad. I just went into like I started going into like the school thing.
No. I also asked you one question, then we started to answer that, and then I asked you another question. I that was just a kind of a dive into like what was the bullying thing, but like the track that we were on was when you became more aware of like, oh wait, the lifestyle that I'm living maybe isn't one that I want to live, and it's kind of weird. Like,
so I think that actually does go hand in hand with the bullying, because I think especially once I hit fifth and sixth grade. That was when I was like, all right, man, this ain't it. Like, even upon entering fourth grade and like telling kids like, oh, my parents are pastors, like they treated me weird. And then fifth grade and sixth grade were especially when they started like, treating me weird once I told them. And then it kind of like even kids would like call me like preacher man or whatever. And I was like, I don't know how that's like an insult. Now I'm like, I don't know how that's an insult, but back then I was just like, shit, dang, okay. Like they kind of like more so outcasted me in a way. Like it was either, and especially at that time, it was either be made fun of or, and I feel like, I felt like shit back then. I still kind of feel like shit for it now, but it was like either be made fun of or join in everybody else with making fun of this one kid. You know what I'm saying? And then at least for a time, I won't get, ragged on. I'll be part of the group, and I can, but after I think I did that, I went back to the kid and I was like, yo, I'm sorry about that. Like, I never did it again, but I just like felt bad after that happened. And like, I think but yeah, fourth and fifth grade, it was just like, that was when I started like more so thinking like, I don't know how I feel about this lifestyle anymore. And then especially once I got into high school, I was just like, bro, I'm kind of over this. Cause it's like, especially being a pastor's kid, it's like a different set of responsibilities too. Excuse me, I had to burp. Excuse me again, my bad. So yeah, it's like a different set of responsibilities that come with it rather than like a kid who just goes to church. So I had to be at every church event, whether it be like they come to our church or like we had to like go out of town and visit another church so we could watch like either my mom or my dad preach. Like I had to be there and support and basically look like a good example for them. Like basically make it look like we had our shit together,
Right.
And then especially dealing with that, like from, I would say since they started being pastors at first grade to, I think I actually started growing independence from them in church, like around the time I got into actually working like heavily at like 19, 20, 21.
Okay. So up until that time, like, are you kind of like juggling the battle of figuring out how you fit in somewhere at school with friends and also feeling like you don't fit in at home? Like, is that a proper assessment? Like, is that
I would
like...
say so, yes.
Okay.
Cause like it, and like, again, I don't wrangle my parents for anything. Parents are always going to like, especially this, it's like they didn't know how it affected us. I mean, especially when we got older, they realized like how it affected us. Mm-hmm. And parents are always learning. So.
And also during this, they're not doing anything directly to harm you. They're not like, no, this is you know what I mean?
It's like
it's not
a form
directly...
of, exactly. They're trying to like discipline me. And it did give me a good, like they did, like their teachings did give me good discipline and help shape me into, I would say, help shape me into the person I am today. There's some other factors that actually shaped me into the person I am today, but like I think more so they gave me that backbone of like what it is to be a good person and how to respect people. And like, even if people don't respect you, you always keep it, you don't need to do anything to like treat them like shit or like go out of their way to like disrespect them too. Like,
right. And there was just at some point in your life where you had to learn for yourself and not through their teachings or anybody else. Like you had to figure that out for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, like the question of like, what was that battle like balancing those two things? Like while you're learning, like, okay, I'm starting to be a little bit more independent. I don't totally want to do these things that I'm kind of needing or having to do at home. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm feeling a little bit weird at home. And now also even when I go to school, like I'm just feeling weird here too.
Exactly. It was definitely a little bit hard. I would say more so at school, it was just the battle of like, trying to be like everybody else. 'Cause that's what every kid faces in school, like trying to fit in, trying to have friends, at least have their own crowd. Especially it was hard there, especially since I was like outcasted and made fun of so much just for being different. I think especially once I started getting into rock, and I say rock because like at that point, and I think I don't know at that point when I would say around. See, I've always been like a quote unquote thrasher. Like as a kid, like as a baby, if my dad ever played like something fast with at least some electric guitar in it, you know, something that's like super upbeat, I would be in the back seat in my baby seat, just like thrashing back and forth, like, oh yeah. So I've always had that energy, and I feel like it more so became prominent once and this is, I don't consider it embarrassing because I wear it on my chest, on my sleeve, bro. I'd say when I first started playing the Sonic Adventure games in 2nd or 3rd grade. The soundtracks for those games, perfect. And that like literally kickstarted my love for rock. That, and also I would say my older sister, you know, since my parents had the rule, only Christian music, nothing secular. My sister more so got me into some bands like fucking Skillet. And I found POD to... I'm trying to think of what else. I found Linkin Park through Transformers. That was good, decent movie, good song. Yes. But yeah, like I think around 2nd or 3rd grade, not 2nd, 3rd grade. I would say, let's say 5th or 6th or 7th, because I think 7th. That's when I actually had my own MP3 player, and I actually just was like, fuck it, I'm loading my own music onto here. So I would add on my own like tracks from all the video games, or I would be in the computer room at school, like watching just like the intros to certain Sonic games just to listen to the track because I didn't have my MP3 that day. Once kids caught wind that I got into metal, rock. Once kids caught wind that I was listening to rock, they more so outcasted me. You know, they outcasted me even more because, you know, oh, it's fucking weird for a black kid to listen to rock. And also, like, I guess, like, around, like, just around where I was, I feel like it was just mad sheltered. Like, sheltered as in, like, you know, it was weird for all of us, you know, what's normal now, like, or not even normal now, I would say is okay and normal now, like, so say, you know, for me to listen to metal and have that much love for metal, that's, I would say, okay now, but, like, back then, growing up, it was more so looked down upon, just like, you know, like how a white kid would love rap. You know, people would shit on him for liking rap because they think he's trying to be black, or they would shit on me because they think I'm trying to be white, where it's just like we just have these tastes and this is who we are. That's just what I've dealt with growing up, and that was definitely hard to deal with at school. And then just going from there to home, it was more so like, okay, I can't, like, it's like I had to more so have thoughts that's somewhat paralleled with what my parents taught me and believe. But also at the same time, it's like I couldn't really be who I was at home, more so like they didn't care that I like rock. They just wished that they wanted it to be Christian. So that's where I started diving into like all the Christian like rock and metal bands and such. Regardless, like they didn't want me to become like my dad, like become a pastor or anything, but it was just the fact that like they wanted me to be what's the word for it, a devout Christian. More so they wanted me to live life like a devout Christian and not be a part of the secular world, more so, or the world around me. Mm-hmm. And that was definitely kind of hard.
So
sure.
While you're balancing all of that and figuring out, you know, who you are at school, who you are at home, maybe feeling kind of lost in both situations, like what are, and if there's more than one, there's more than one, like what's your constant during all of that? Like what is the one thing that you feel like you had control over? Like what was it like, okay, I'm finding this music and this is making me feel a certain way, and finally I get to load my MP3 with like whatever I want to listen to? Or was it drawing? Was it video games? Like did you have that like constant that you were like, you know what, no matter what happened at school or no matter how awkward I might feel at home, I've got this form of self-expression? Like, did you have that throughout that?
I feel like drawing was my thing.
Okay.
More so. I think because, you know, especially like when I was in school not feeling the best, I would tune out and I would just like draw in my notebook or just draw on the back of my homework or whatever sheet I had. I think eventually it got to a point where I just started writing. Not even just music really, but more so like stories. creating my own like stories. I wanted to like when I was younger, I wanted to like write my own book. Like me and my sister tag teamed a story about some time travelers and shit. We never finished it, but we thought we had a cool concept going, and like just working on that story consistently pretty much helped me, like I would say, find that balance more. So it helped me get away from it all.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So as we're growing up, we're getting through all these things. We're starting to identify like maybe a little bit more who we are, mm-hmm. what we like. When we get in the high school years, that's when everybody is always like, I'm being myself, like just let me be, whatever.
Right.
When you are starting to lean into more adulthood, did you go the way of like rebelling against how you grew up, or were you like, how can I find my way out of this? Like, what was that transition period like of like, no, like I'm becoming an adult, I can make my own decisions now. Like, did you let yourself rebel at all, or was it just like a smooth kind of like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and just try this thing on my own?
I think it was like rebel. It was in a form. It was a form of rebellion, yeah. But it was also more like I'm gonna do this on my own volition. Not let them know. If they ask, I might tell them. I might lie. We'll figure out how they come at me when they ask. I think especially it started slow too, because I think at first it started with me rebelling started with like me not listening to anything really remotely Christian anymore. Slowly like kind of phasing that out of my like queue. Especially once I got the iPod in, and I was able to like, I use YouTube to MP3. That was like my best friend.
Yeah.
So I had like literally all these songs on my iPod, and like that's when I started finding out like more and more of my taste. That's especially, I would say, freshman year of high school. No, freshman year, because that's when my friend showed me Killswitch, Engage, and Under Oath. So that was like when I first started the metal journey, and the more and more I got into it, I was like, man, like there's only so many good Christian metal bands, but all these other bands are like great as fuck, but they're all like secular. And so at one point I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just start downloading it. And like me also being a weenie, I was like, well, what if your parents like get on your iPod and they see like, oh, you're listening to the final episode by Asking Alexandria, what do you do then? So like there was like definitely a period where I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Maybe I shouldn't. I would say once I hit junior year, that was when I was like, all right, I'm gonna phase this shit out. Like, I'm gonna just take in music as it is. It's not listening to whatever's not gonna change what I think. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just dive in. And from then on, that's when I started getting my own taste in music, And then, especially after I graduated, that's when I started watching a lot more movies. That especially having my dad's. I literally commandeered my dad's Netflix. Like he has an account that has all the family on it, but like I just took his profile and I commandeered it for my own and just started watching like all the good movies I can. And now I love, that's where I found my love for horror. That's where I found my love for like crime gangster movies. Like anything that I would say Quentin Tarantino or like friggin' what's his name? He did Casino and like fucking I fucking forget. Anything crime gangster related, I fucking love. Mm-hmm. But that's just where I think that was like the next phase. And then I think once I hit like 1920, that was when I was like, all right, bro, I'm gonna start smoking and drinking.
Okay, so that was actually going to be my next question was not smoke. When did you start smoking and drinking? But more so, when do you feel like did you take that official step into like, all right, no more tiptoeing, no more hiding the iPod, no more whatever. Like I am officially like, this is me stepping out into my own world. Yeah. Like, so it was around that time then?
Yeah, definitely 1920. Sorry, excuse me. Because especially then, that's when I had it wasn't my first band. I think I started like creating bands, or I started like having bands around like, I want to say sophomore year of high school. And at 1920, that's when I actually found a group of guys to get together, and we actually did the thing. We started playing local shows. That's when that was when I was in my old band Underestimate. just the people that was in that band, they kind of like opened up my world a little bit. They got me into some of the artists that I love now. They kind of like helped me get into some of the movies that I love now. They've helped me through a lot, especially like the different, dealing with Christian parents. You can't come to them for certain advice, because it's always going to allude back to Christ, the Bible, Christianity somehow. Whereas like, I want an actual solution. I don't want to like, give it to some, it's not giving it, but it's like hiding behind. I consider it hiding behind it, especially because for some, and this is just my opinion. I'm sorry if I hurt people's opinions about this, but it's like, I feel like, I don't know, especially because I've been in it for so long. I feel like I have to say this, but it's just like, I feel like there are certain people who just hide behind the religion and don't actually like follow it, or actually do the things to actually better their life. Like sure, the religion is there and it has principles and teachings, but I feel like there are people who just like use the religion to hide behind, like, hide behind or like to run away from what they're actually dealing with. And I feel like it's supposed to like help. It's like a set of like instructions and you're supposed to actually do the work. And I don't know, just being around that just kind of like being around so many people who are like that just kind of pushed me away.
Right. You're seeing maybe bad examples of what religion could be or should be doing or whatever it may be.
Yeah, especially like in pop culture. That's like not even just pop culture, but just like you've seen it in the news. You've seen it. I'm sure news all over, just like of like, priests, like, touching fucking kids. You know what I'm saying? Or like, fucking Joel Osteen, getting all this money for fucking church when he could probably, putting all this like millions into a fucking church, whereas that money could probably go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And like even just like Christians, like especially once it got closer to the like legalization of same-sex marriage and such, that like so many just rose up and started becoming like, and they still are out there getting shitty, like, coming down on somebody that makes them. And my principle and belief is like, if God made you this way, why would he tell you not to be yourself? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's the trick with a lot of those arguments, is like that double-edged sword sort of thing, or like not a damn it, what's it called? Paradox.
Yes.
Where, you could ask one of those people of like, oh, okay, so like you don't like this person because they're gay. Okay, I understand that, but didn't God make them?
Exactly.
So like, are you saying they need to change for God, or are we subscribing to the idea you were talking about 5 minutes ago about how God makes people the way that they are? Like,
exactly.
And it does become that tricky paradox of like, well, are we only believing certain things when the time is right for it's convenient for our argument,
exactly.
or what do we actually believe? So yeah, I understand kind of what you're saying. Yeah,
and like just learning, like just especially when I learned more about like the Bible is like, I went from like, oh, the Bible was written by this dude so long ago, like when God like enlightened him and shit, to like actually the fucking King James version is just like fucking written by a wretched old king who wanted to, and that like version was written so that it could basically like make whatever he was doing at the time look better. And that's one of the most popular versions going on now. So it's like, how am I about to take advice from somebody who's like actually shitty and is trying to rewrite something to cover up their wrongs? I'm just like, no. Like my thing is like I still have some beliefs, and then there's some things that I still kind of take from what I taught, and then there's some things that I've learned and like discovered for my own, and I'm still discovering.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I feel like in the hindsight of everything, I think that like Christ is like, I think as long as, and I hate to take it to this fucking direction, but this is just what I believe. Like, if there is a Christ, I don't think like, if there is a Christ, if there is a God, then, it says like the biggest thing we have to do is just love one another. And if we love one another, we're not going to hurt them. We're not going to cheat, steal, do any of that shit, So again, why do I need this institution to tell me I need to be a good person?
Right.
When this is like a basic principle that we should all have, like, and carry every day.
And I think that's the most important thing to learn from a lot of those things. Like, you could sit and rebel and be angry at all that sort of stuff, but you luckily, like, once you start living your own life, you started to take those learnings for yourself and do with them what needed to be done for you. You started forming your own viewpoints and not just getting stuck in like, well, this is how I grew up and I either hate it or I think only that. Like, I think that's what a lot of people do. And I'm not just talking even with religion. I'm talking with anything.
Exactly.
Like, just like I come from a small town and like I feel like I am nothing like anybody in that small town anymore, but there's like so many people that I do see that I feel like haven't grown out of that
mentality of
you
that
know,
town.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you're supposed to outgrow how you were raised or where you come from. That doesn't mean you leave behind anything that you were taught. You know what I mean? It's you morph those into being your own person.
Exactly.
So whether it's religion, racism, anything, like, you need to learn
and
to
apply it.
Exactly. Like, to get out of those mindsets or get out of those things that might have been drilled into your head, for good, bad, in between, whatever it is. Like,
Definitely.
You learn what you think about those things. You learn how you feel about those things. You can sit and, yeah, you're not sitting here and you're like, I don't care about any of that stuff that I learned. Like, screw it, whatever. It's so dumb. You're like, no. This is how I've grown to understand it.
Right.
And this is what it means to me, and this is how I will treat. And just like you said, like, you shouldn't need a really, really old, rewritten a million times book to tell you, hey, just be a good person.
Literally. like that's something that the voice in your back of your head like tells you, should be telling you, like, every moment of every second of the day, you know? And like, oh, it's Daddy Longleg decided to join in on the conversation. What's up, bro?
Where is it at?
He at the door. He's just chilling
Okay.
on the
As
wall.
long as it's way over there.
He's just waving hi. It's all.
If it was, you're like, it's right in your face, dude. I would have lost it.
Nah. See, if it was right in your face, I probably would have been like, all right, bro. I think I would have, or I could have just started screaming. I don't know, one of the two.
Listen,
Because I don't like spiders at all.
Listen, I don't either. We started this whole podcast talking about horror movies are so cool. They make you feel something. Yeah, being afraid is fun. And I'm like, hold on, there's a spider in this
Right,
room?
like spiders. Hold on, hit the brakes, dog.
No,
Like,
no spiders.
let's exit the room real
Yeah,
quick.
I'm not. We might have to just quit the podcast right now, burn the whole place down.
Man, I'm in a metal band, and I openly say, like, oh, I don't fuck with spiders, bro. Like,
I'm not a fan of spiders.
it's
No.
just like, see, if it's small like that, I don't care. Like, if it's small,
Daddy Longleg, that's okay. Like, I
just-
don't really want you around me or on me, but that's okay.
yeah, like, I'll scoot you out the window, get you outside where you need to be. Now, when it starts getting thicker and I start seeing details, that's when I'm gonna have to, like, all right, like, if you're, you know, I don't think I'll even have the patience to even, like, sweep it outside, because then that gives it enough time to crawl on me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Is like, that gives it a chance to, like, hop onto you, and
Exactly.
I don't know, like that.
Yeah, it's just gonna die in my house. That's it.
That's totally fair.
Or I'll just send my
thankfully-
cat after him. Like, he likes to hunt bugs. Like, I'll be like, Neo, get him.
Yeah, it's also that. Okay, yeah. Well, hopefully that spider hangs out over there. If it does end up on me, I'm gonna need you. to
He's
tell me
exiting
it's-
the room.
Okay,
He-
good.
yeah.
He heard us. He's like, damn, you guys, what the fuck?
He's like, I'm about to leave. Y'all are rude as fuck.
shit talk me. Like, that's fucked up. I'm not subscribing to this podcast.
Right. I'm telling all my spider homies, like, to unsubscribe, bro.
Yeah, don't listen to that fucking show. Okay, so let's talk more about music. So,
Yes.
you know, you're uncovering all these artists. You're not trying to. You are starting to figure out what your taste in music is. And you said you started joining bands, having your own bands in high school. Does that start to become the thing that you're like, this is really what I want to do? Like, what's the trigger point for you to be like, oh, this music making thing, I want to be a part of it, like, not just listen to it?
So, like, the music making thing actually runs further back, because I live in a, like, my family is all musical. My dad, my earliest memories of my dad was, like, he used to perform at different churches and, like, sing for them. And even there was a time that he sang the national anthem at the Red Stadium in Cincinnati. And I remember going there as a kid. But I always looked up to him because, like, you know, he was, in my mind, he was doing the damn thing, you know, like, I don't know, like, I always looked up to him, and he always was writing songs. He even had, like, old, like, studio recordings of him and his, like, brothers, like, doing music. And so I think as a kid, I've always looked up to him on that, and I think I wanted to like I was in band 6th grade. You know, I played alto sax. But from then on, I was like, I want to try guitar. So like I quit band, picked up guitar around middle school, you know, tried that. But around then, like just figuring out like music, that was when I was like, you know, even playing guitar and learning it. I was like, all right, this is kind of fun, you know, just like, you know, I had a little website that taught me tabs and all this and that. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I think from then on, I started, no, okay, yeah, it was in middle school. I think from then on, I started like writing my own lyrics. Because for whatever reason, I think as a kid, I thought being a rapper was cool. So I tried to write my own raps as a kid, and it didn't come out well, but I always like, you know, most of my writing, you know, when you start that young, you don't come out and like, you don't start at 7 years old and come out with like, I don't know, something as great as like, I don't know, something that Kanye would just like shit out every day, like some
you're
just
not gonna
greatness.
kill it when you're
No, so like it just took me a few years, but I think once I got into high school, especially once I found like Under Oath and Kill Switch, because I think that aggression and like that passion that I saw with their shit, I think I was just like, yo, this is actually sick as fuck. Like maybe I should do music. Like maybe it'd be cool. And then like I listened to The Devil Wears Prada, and then I remember it was during Hey John, what's your name again? It was during my 7th listen of that day, and I was like, all right, I want to start a band. And so I think when that happened, I was, sophomore in high school. And I tried, you know, from then on to like search for people to like join me. And it was pretty hard because like nobody in high school was like into metal like I was. And if they were, you know, they didn't really play anything. Or if they did play anything, they were already in a project or just like, you know, just weren't able to follow through as well. Mm-hmm. So it took me a few years until like, again, 18, 19. My high school friend, Trey, who played guitar in my last band, Underestimate, I think, you know, I came to him. We both were in the band that I previously attempted to like create. He was in it, and it was like 2 other people, and then it kind of fell apart. But I was like, yo, let's still do something. He was like, I'm fucking down. And he found my friend Jackson, who then knew, he found my friend Jackson to play guitar. And then Jackson then found our friend Tyler to play drums. And also a mutual friend, Alex, to play bass. And then we kind of started it. And once I was like 19, took a year to practice songs. Pretty much, we went through we didn't really go through a lot of lineup changes. We did. We had like an extra vocalist with us, but then he decided to quit after a year. And after you know, we kind of did the band thing for a couple years. You know, we were like one of the more not notable, but we were one of the more talked about bands in the Cincinnati scene, I would say. Like, especially for being new, like, you know, we tried to like give it our all and like write as good as we could. You know, it did well. And that point, that's definitely when I was like, I could do this for the rest of my life, dog. Especially playing shows, I was like, I don't ever want to stop.
Yeah. Okay, so that first band was like metalcore, like that genre of music. Mm-hmm. Was there any weird pushback from family? Were they like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And then you were like, "Oh, okay,
yeah." See, especially when I first started with my family, you know, that was when I first started doing bands. That was around the time that I was like kind of like slowly, you know, I was still kind of like weird about like listening to secular music versus listening to Christian music. So I was still like kind of hiding it. And especially when I told my mom about like, yo, I'm going to start a band. She was like, is it going to be Christian? And I was just like, I told her yes, just to shut her up. I was like, yeah, it's Christian. She's like, okay, that's good. Like, I'm proud of you. Like all this and that. And same with my dad, you know, like, and then I think once they actually like heard some of the I think when we first put out our first EP, Underestimate. When we put out our first EP, my mom was like, I want a physical. And I was like, are you sure? She was like, yeah, it's your very first. Like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, okay. And I just like give it to her. She's like, some of these songs have cursing on it. And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, you told me it was Christian. And I was like, yeah.
You should have just played it off and been like, wait a sec, what did that producer do?
Right.
None of this was in there.
She was like, that's my son saying that. Like, I'm just like, oh, dog. But nah, it was like, there was some slight pushback, especially with I would say more so with my dad, because he really wanted it to be, I don't know, I don't think he really resonated with the metal side. Because especially at that point, when I was actually practicing and doing all this for Underestimate, trying to get us off the ground more so, he would always come to me saying, like, you could do better, like, as a solo project. Like, you don't need all these individuals. And I'm like, well, Dad, I can't play guitar and I can't play drums. And, like, I need those people. Like,
right.
And he's just like, but honestly, you could do better as a solo. Like, you don't know the potential you had. And I was like, thanks for trying, Dad. Like, I understand, like, you believe in me, like, as a musician, but, like, this is what I'm trying to do here. Like, you just got to accept that.
Well, I feel like also at that time, to be fair, it's all, like, metalcore is a hard sell during that. Like, even when I, like, was in my very first bands, they were clearly, they were just trendy metalcore at the time.
Yep.
And none of my family is, like, ultra religious or anything. So it wasn't that pushback. It was just like, I don't understand what this is.
Right. They're like, I can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, like, what is it? Oh, that's okay. That's what you call heavy music. Okay, this is like heavy metal, right? And then you're like, it's metalcore. Like, you don't understand the scene, but it's,
right.
It's like there was just that disconnect.
Definitely.
Anyway, you know what I mean?
And it's like generational, because it's like all they had, at least for their heavy shit, because my parents grew up like, so they're like pushing 60. My mom is 60 now. My dad's getting there. So like when they grew up, especially around that time, all they had with, that they considered heavy was like, the starter pack, like metal bands like Metallica and all that shit coming in like within the, I don't know. I don't know music like that. So like I would say around 70s, 80s, that's my rough shot. Please don't crucify me. But yeah, that's all they had compared to like all the growth. And so what they know about that, and just like rock and roll in general from what they grew up on, and then seeing how we took it, not even just we, just like the people that came after them, how they took that genre and just turned it into what we now have as like metalcore. And even when I started doing deathcore more, like they're just like, what? Like, what did y'all, like literally my guitarist, his dad and his grandfather like came to one of our first shows. And he was like, look what they did to our music. Like, oh, boy. Yep. Like, they liked it, but they were like, look what they did to our music. And I'm just like, yeah, like, it's definitely, like, hard. Even now, like, it's just hard to describe to some people. And I'm just like, hey, if you like this, like, sure, fucking go ahead and listen to it. But, like, if you don't have history in this, like, with this band, or at least this genre as a whole, then I don't know how you're going to feel about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that was even going to be one of the next things I asked was like, what is it now? And I know we're probably skipping over a handful of years and stuff, but like,
it's all good.
Even now with like Inferious or anything else that you're doing or like have done, like, is there still that kind of like weird, like, yeah, okay, now I've like delved into full like deathcore and even like, I kind of even want to know this for selfish reasons. Like, did they see the music video where we make you get possessed?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes. And let me tell you, when my mom saw Evolution, she literally texted me like the day after, she texted me the night of the release, the music video release. And she was like, you're coming to church with me tomorrow. I was like, no. She's like, how dare you do that? Like, we taught you all this and that. And I'm like, Mom, it's not even real symbols. We just took pages from an art history book. Yeah. We painted our own shit.
There's like these little acting. Like crappy candles. Like, yeah. Like, you were like, no, you should be stoked. And I'm like, I'm a good actor. Look at this. Like,
exactly.
You believed it. Like,
exactly. And she's just
so
like,
good.
She's just like, I don't know. She was proud that I even made it to the point where I like have music videos and like did it at such a level that you guys do it. Like she was still proud. She was just like now, especially now that I'm in Inferious and they've seen like the growth, like from just like going to like, oh, like I'm not like I consider my last band like just some like local band. I think there's some stuff that we could have done to take ourselves further, but where it was, I think it would have been like like where it was and where it ended, it didn't go past the local era or the local scene. Whereas this project now, it's starting to like, I don't want to say make leaps and bounds, but it's like we're hitting like milestones that I've never even seen before. So like, especially when Worm dropped and we got all those like shares on Facebook, all those numbers, like that was fucking crazy. I've never seen that before. And then especially when we started dropping those music videos and the music and just seeing like the growth from like in our fan base, like even my mom, like I think my sisters saw it first and then they relayed it to my parents and they were like, Gabe is like actually like his stuff is actually really good. Like they're not into metal. Well, my youngest sister, we both were into metalcore at the same time, but she more so, whereas I stayed in hell yeah, fuck yeah, metal brother, she more so moved into like I want to say like the normie side where it's like she still fucks with it every now and then, but she more so likes indie pop, R&B, soul, all that. Like she doesn't really mess with it as heavy as I do. But even a couple, I would say no, I don't think she came. It was my second oldest sister, because I have 3 sisters, oldest, middle, younger. My middle sister, she came to a couple of my shows, and especially she's seen Underestimate shows, and she's seen a couple Inferious shows. And when she saw us, I think the first time she saw Inferious play, she like went back to my parents, and they were like, she was like, Gabe actually like is really good live, and he's like, he's getting the crowd engaged and all this and that. Like his band is actually doing something. And then they were like, oh really? And like I even showed them the numbers from the music video, and they're like, oh shit. Yeah. So they kind of like, now they got like a newfound since then they've got like a newfound respect for what I do.
That's awesome.
They still wish it was Christian, but they like are happy with what I do, and they like support me. And I couldn't be happier that they actually it's no longer like, oh, you could do something solo, or like I wish it was Christian. It's,
that pushback isn't there anymore.
Yeah, it's more so like they will actually be like my mom will actually, I'm Julian now because I think for a year and a half I was like smoking cigarettes. So like my mom will be like, you need to stop that. Like, you're going to mess your voice up. And I'm like, I know. Like they always are like looking out for me, so they know that I can take this avenue as far as I can. And like, I can't appreciate them enough. Like, I'm forever thankful for them.
Yeah, man. I wonder how differently I would have felt making that music video had I known all of this. Of like, all right, man, I need you to be on the ground. You need to be super possessed. Peel your skin off. Like, we're gonna put you in a fake like pentagram. Like,
I still would have gone full send with it. Honestly, I still would have gone full send.
That to me gives making that video like a whole different experience now. Like that's so fun.
That's my favorite memory ever. It's just like, and like even. I think even with even when we did the second batch of videos, because I showed them that, and that was less like, I think it was less horror inspired. So I think I felt like okay showing them. But when they saw that, they were really like, this is really good, Gabe. Like you were doing something really great. You better not mess this up. And I'm like, I'm not trying to, man. Like, I don't know. Yeah, regardless, they're with me and support me, even though, we don't see eye to eye to certain things, but like, hey, that's how children and parents work.
Right. And that's awesome that it now comes to a good place where it's like everybody's respecting everybody understands where everybody's at with everything.
Definitely.
What was your first like solidification? Was it like number one show you played with first band? Was it like something with Inferious? Like, when did you feel like, yeah, this is like, I'm so glad I found this music thing. This is what I'm like supposed to be doing.
So I think it comes to me. It always comes back to me in waves. And like me, I'm a self-conscious guy. So it comes back to me in waves. So there are times where I'm like, yo, I'm actually really glad I did this. Like, this is an avenue where I can actually be open and be myself. Like, I'm actually growing, especially with like, with how I've grown as far as like screaming goes, I'm like, shit, like I've come a long way. Like I pat myself on the back sometimes. I would say, and then there are times where I'm like, like, oh man, like I'm not as good as this band, or I'm not as good as this vocalist, but like, fuck it. It always whenever I'm in the pocket of the first mood, it's usually like, and to answer your question, I think it would be like when it's at shows. And I think the first time I ever felt that was like, an Underestimate show. And I think that was like, especially when I think around the time, so it was the show that I met Christian. I already met Drew at the time, but that was when I met Christian, and like Denialist and In Dying Arms was doing that tour. And they stopped through Cincinnati, and like a bunch of people showed out, and I think we were like before like the direct support, which was Denial. No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Denialist. It was like two other bands on that, but we were before like the touring acts basically. And I think like, I don't know, the fun from that show, especially because so many people showed out, and I think that's where I got a lot of like, I think around then is when I like kind of, I'm trying to figure out how I can say this. Around then was when, I think before then, it's always been like, yo, like, Underestimate is sick. Gabe McQueen, like, his vocals are actually sick. And everybody was like, always was like, oh, he sounds like out of ward, But like, I think at that show, that was when I actually feel like we like solidified ourselves, not just as a band, but as people in the scene, And like, it went really well. We all had fun. And then especially after that, once I got into Inferious, after meeting Christian and Drew, I think after, I would say our album release show, our very first one, that one, I think I was like, yo, this is like the best. Like this was the move right here. And I was just like, because, just seeing so many people come out and support me for, I think that was like I think that first album was like at least one of my better works. Like I was going through some like stuff emotionally, and I think I definitely did a good job in like pouring myself out into my art to like create some nightmarish world, that people can enjoy. And like, to perform it live is another aspect. I just, I think just seeing the energy come from, just seeing the energy of the band and I on stage, and then also seeing the energy of the people out in the crowd just like resonating with something that I created from like something like, something I created after feeling shitty, for so many years. I think especially after we broke up, like Underestimate broke up, I thought that was it, not gonna lie, because in my experience, it's always been hard to come across people to be in bands. And, especially in that area, nobody really wanted to play, or I didn't know a lot of people that wanted to play metal. And again, or they play metal, but they were in another project, or they play metal, but they just can't follow through and like stick with the plan, However, once I got, after that like period of sadness and then finding Inferious, seeing it all come together at that like album release show, I was just like, yo, like, like, I even thought about quitting after that last band ended. And like, when I saw that happen, I was like, I'm fuck feeling like that ever again, dude. Like, like, I don't see anywhere else besides this. I don't have any thoughts where I was like, oh, I could have ended up here, or like, I kind of regret taking this. I wish I should have taken that route. Like, I think this is the life that I'm supposed to be in, what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I love that. Yeah, what do you feel like your favorite part of making music is? Is it, kind of like what you said, like you find somewhere to house those maybe bad times or emotions and express those through something, or is it connecting with people through that, or is it performing? Like, do you have a favorite part of like what you found?
Oh man. See, like, that's a hard question to ask, because I love all aspects of it. Mm-hmm. I love the creation process, and my process is like, just kind of more so take whatever music I have and like whatever tracks, Christian or Drew send me, and just kind of like meditate on it for like a week or two, just kind of come up with like what's the vibe that they're trying to push? What's the aesthetic more so that they're trying to push with this? And how can I take it to something that's going to fit our aesthetic? And then also, I would say do something, I don't want to say do something new, because I don't know. I could say do something new, but then I don't know how confident I feel about that statement. But I want to at least take something that I think is like, catchy or like hard hitting to my ears, and just kind of like, from then on, I just start constructing, writing a story. Not even writing a story, but I just write lyric by lyric. Like, I go by, when I write, I go by rhythm more so. Like, so if I hear a certain part in a song that is sick, I'm going to try and mouth the rhythm of that part to see how I can, structure a sentence or a line to make it hit that emphasis on that certain part, so that way it like sticks into people's minds. The tracking part is definitely fun too, because I feel like I can definitely, get creative. Like, I'm not going to try and go and do like some super extreme like deathcore, some super extreme like deathcore thing. Like, I'm not going to try and take us to become like the next Lorna Shore or whatever, but I like seeing like, all right, like what can I do to like grow myself vocally, but also like, what if I did this? Like, what if I did this technique?
You want to constantly be evolving.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I always, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's work or music, I always try to be teachable and try to absorb everything that I can, so I can like just take whatever information and just kind of like use it, take, song structure and figure out what's catchy, what's not, and how I can apply it to my own gains. Even just like waiting for, I guess, releasing the actual material. That's just fun, seeing like the people's reaction, and then especially when we play it live, that's just the release. But in like, now they're actually, I see their reaction, like, face to face more so, and it's just I'm able to take out, especially at shows, I'm able to take out whatever residual negative energy I have inside, or just like whatever energy, let's say crackhead energy I have inside, that I can't like exhibit at work or in my I exhibit it in my day-to-day life, like with my friends, but it's like, I feel like shows is like a different aspect. It's like a hardcore crackhead. So it's like, I'm going to be like moving around on stage, like acting all tough and shit, trying to like throw kicks and like be some kind of crazy ass motherfucker more so. Just put on a show that people can like be like, yo, this motherfucker's wild and he sounds crazy too. Like shit. Like all aspects of just having the band, I think it's just, I don't know. I don't have a favorite. See I don't know. Every part of it I love, and every part of like, I don't know. I can't pick a favorite, honestly. Yeah,
no.
I just love doing it for real.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome that you can't pinpoint something because you love the entire process. Like that's a perfectly fine answer. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's like it's such a long, like, in having a band, it's such a long process too, and it's taught me patience. But it's like, I think the more and more I do it, I just appreciate it more, because it's just like, I don't know, especially taking this project and comparing it with my last project, I kind of see like, why we do this instead of this. So it's like, sure, the wait's going to be like a while, but like I would rather wait a while and have a great impact than like be a band who's like, all right, bam, 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 or like just like not even have a plan with releasing. We're just like, we're kind of just doing whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like having a group and a team that we can kind of like plan something so that it works out perfectly for us, in the end.
Right. So what do you feel like what, I guess the easiest way to ask this question is, what's next? Or like, where do you see yourself going? Like, is it like Inferious like full force, or is it like, cool, I've got the Inferious thing going, I finally like solidified that, like the music part of me? Is it I want to work more on like comic books or art, and I want to find new ways to tell my stories? Like, so not just what's next with Inferious, but more so like what's next with you? Like, where do you want to see yourself going?
So I definitely want to, like, as far as I'm concerned, I want to do Inferious full force. You know, I want to take it as far as we can go. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I'm trying to, like, in my mind, I'm trying to get us to be like the next Acacia Strain, honestly. But also, in just like my life, personally, I kind of want to, I don't know, I've got like a couple projects that I'm just like thinking about, and it's all like art centered, and like I'm just like, especially in the last few months, I've just been in a headspace of like, all right, I can't work in the kitchen forever, like what are you gonna do, Gabe? And like, you know, I went to college for like a semester, or not, let's say a semester and a half, no, not a semester and a half, 2 semesters, 2.5 semesters. How about that? Yeah, 2.5 semesters. And so I really don't have any certification or anything. So I'm trying to figure out like ways that I can line my own pockets with like what I know. So like the comic, my plan is more so just to, like, you know, the app Webtoons, or the site Webtoons?
I don't actually.
So it's this like website where pretty much like comic artists like post their like comics on there. There's been some like anime, like some manga on there that have like been like green lighted to become shows. Like there's a one called The God of High School. Now it's a Crunchyroll show. Like they put out the first season, and this dude has like fucking 700 chapters worth of shit. You know what I'm saying? So
that's so dope.
Yeah, man. Like it's going to take time. I even looked into it. Like it's definitely going to take some time, money, because of merchandising and promotion. But I feel like that's something that, like, you know, if I got like a good job, you know, that I could definitely do that. Especially once I figure out this story. Like I got the story figured out, but once I want to like get through all the loopholes and make sure there are no plot holes, you know. Once I workshop it enough, I'm definitely doing that. I'm putting it on Webtoons, whatever other platform I can, trying to make as much merchandising I can and promote it as much as possible, so that way, fuck it, if I end up on Netflix, because half the shit that's on there usually isn't really that good anyway. Like it's not, I don't know. It's like with Netflix originals, they have like a lot of originals to the point where like they don't even need their own, like they don't need to like add other shows, you know what I'm saying? So like I feel like that one's like quote unquote somewhat easier, but at the same time I feel like I just want to like kind of get it to a point where it's like it's greenlit for a show, you know?
Yeah. And
then I also have been thinking about doing like an animated series too, because I've had a hand in animation as well. Like so when I was a kid, I used to have a Nintendo DSi, and there's this app called Flipnote. And so you could create your own like little animations on the DS and shit, and then you could upload them online, which was called Flipnote Hatena. And it would just be like a bunch of like random animations of like, maybe it would be some cool like shit, like anime characters fighting, or like stick figures like dancing to Lady Gaga, you know? Like that's where I started. And once I got Adobe, I even like kind of tried to, like on my laptop, I tried to create like a little like test animation sequence. And like, you know, I kind of figured it out. It is a lengthy process, but I feel like if I figure out what I want to do for the series, especially like, because I'd want it to be, whereas the comic, I want it to be serious. This series, like the animated series, I want it to be, to show my comedy side more so. So like, especially if I have like figured out a plan for that, I think I'm just gonna have fun with it, whatever, you know, or whatnot. Because I definitely want it to be like shit you would find on YouTube, like, and show your friends, like, oh, here's this short that I watched the other day, and it's just like 5 minutes of bullshit, you know. And then I just want to keep going with that and see what avenue that takes me. Like some artists that are on YouTube, like, you know, that have been doing it like Flash animations for like a long time, like have ended up on Adult Swim. Like Michael Cusack, I think, is one of them. He did like a short for Rick and Morty. I think it ended up on Adult Swim. He called it Bush World Adventures, but it's literally like Rick and Morty, but if they were in Australia, and it's just like it's like a crazy fucking field. Like, I don't know. It's a crazy ass roller coaster, bro. And the voice acting in it is just ridiculous, and that's perfect too, because that's what I want to do too. I do weird ass voices, so I think that would just be another thing to like showcase with this series. You know, I'm just like kind of, I don't know. I've been thinking as to how I can use my art to make money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Dude, I love that. I love the sound of all of that.
Thanks so much.
Listen, if you ever need somebody to root you on and be like, hey, should I do these things? Message me, because I'm immediately going to be like, yes, freaking do those things. 100%. I want to see those happen.
Hell yeah.
That is dope.
Thank you, man.
Okay, so last couple of things. We're reaching the end here.
All right, man.
I want to test out a new question for you. Okay?
Let's go.
So if somebody came up to you, and I don't even know who this person is. They could be God. They could be this powerful being. It could be freaking Michael Myers. It could just be somebody who somehow has 100% factual information. Okay? If they came up to you and they were going to tell you what your purpose is in life, what do you think that they would say? Like, they are 100% correct in what they say. They somehow know it, and they're about to deliver it to you. What do you think they're saying?
I think that they would like tell me that I was put on here, like put on this earth to create more so, because that's literally like, I think anything that has to do with creation, art, that's like what I'm drawn to, you know. Like, I love the concept of building my own worlds, building my own realities, you know, figuring out like what the rules are, like how the people in these realities are, like, or just like creating something in my own likeness or image, you know what I'm saying? I think that that's something that I feel like that they would tell me, because like drawing, I've always been drawn, you know, that's something I've always been drawn to. Fucking shit, I didn't want to say those in the same sentence, but fuck. Music, another aspect, that's just another form of creation, you know, and writing too, just like, I feel like those are my biggest like strengths as a person, and I feel like I'm here to contribute that to the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, whether it be through my art or through my writing or through my demon yells, you know what I'm saying?
I love it. Or through acting possessed in a music video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Acting possessed, putting my legs backwards, bending over backwards, ripping my own skin off.
You committed to that, and there was like some things that you did, and I was like, whoa,
yeah,
that was so sick. Like,
I think
you're going hard.
I tried to go full back bend on that one, and I think that was when I fell, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, there was one
I'm
of
a fool.
You went like full back bend, and like you like fell back and like hit your head on the concrete, and I was like, are you good? And you're like, yeah, I just don't know if I can do that again. Yeah, maybe don't. Okay, so another question. If you were to be able to go back in your life at any point in time and talk to little Gabe, what time frame would you go? And more importantly, what would you share? Like, what would you tell little Gabe?
Honestly, I think I would go to, let's say Gabe in third grade, when he had that bald spot. And I would tell him, like, you know, fuck everybody else. Because I'm going to tell him, like, when you get, like, you know, when you become me, like, these people have gone, they peaked in high school, they're all out living their own lives. You know, they're not going to be in your life anymore after you graduate. And even when you move on to the next grade and go home for summer, they're not, the people that you're pressed about now, it's like, they're not, like, they don't matter at the end of it. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't matter. And you just need to keep pushing and keep being yourself, because literally who you are at the end of the day is what people are going to be drawn to, especially in the future. Like, if you just don't worry about who accepts you and who doesn't, just worry about your own self, your own self-worth, and not let anybody else take that self-worth away from you. That's definitely something I would tell them.
I love it. Okay, last thing. We go from talking to young Gabe. Mm-hmm. Now I want you to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
Final question here before we wrap up. I want you to pretend like everyone in the world, everywhere, is on the other end of that microphone.
Yeah.
And they're listening to you. You have a live mic connected to all of them. They can hear you. They can understand you. What is it that you're sharing with everybody? What do you feel like they should hear?
I feel like what people need to hear is that, and this is something I'm also tell myself daily, and something I've been telling myself, I think, all throughout my life, is that, like, you know, not everybody's going to like you, and not everybody's going to accept you for who you are. And like, and again, this is a lesson I'm still learning to this day because I struggle with it no matter where I go. So, no, not everybody's going to like you, and not everybody's going to accept you. But as long as you're willing to, you know, as long as you keep living as a genuine person, as long as you keep giving people that utmost respect that you would demand for yourself, as long as you love others like how you want to be loved, then, like, at the end of the day, the right people are going to come to you. And, like, you don't have to be pressed about, like, you know, maybe you have to take some time to figure out who is around you and who's actually giving to you and who's actually taking from you. And I've taken that time. Like, even my friends will tell you, like, there's been times where I'm not good at texting. So there's been times where I kind of just, like, fade away. And I just need time for myself and time to think, you know. There's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, all you got is yourself. And I would rather take time for myself and make sure I'm fully functioning again before I come back out into the world. And, you know, rather than, like, still out there, but, you know, how should I word this? You know, still out there, but, like, the fact that I'm letting everybody contribute to how I view myself, or, like, letting everybody contribute to how my day plays out, or even how my world plays out. I think, like, I'm already facing, you know, I'm already going through other shit, you know what I'm saying? I don't want people to come in my life and make it more than what it has to be. If you need to take that time to be by yourself and prioritize your life, take it, because again, at the end of the day, all you have is yourself and your happiness, and you control that. So again, put yourself first, treat others how you want to be treated, love others how you want to be loved, and yeah, I think that's it, for real.
Hell yeah, dude, I love that. This was a freaking blast, man.
This was so fun,
honestly. I am so happy we got to do this.
If you ever have that horror episode, bro, I'm coming back.
Dude, yeah, we had the first half of that episode in the first half of this episode. Yes. So we've already started it. We're already down that track.
We have yet to rank the horror movies.
Yes, we got to rank all the horror movies. We got to dig into what we liked and disliked about all of them. We got to talk about all the different genres. You know as well as I do, we could sit here and talk about horror for hours upon hours.
Definitely.
Upon hours. Thank you for even giving me the shot to finally be able to talk some horror on the show a little bit. I feel like I'm always like, yeah, let's dive into the story. Let's do this and creative talk or whatever. I'm like, I love talking about horror movies at any excuse that I can get to do it. So that was a freaking blast. Dude, thank you for sharing your story too.
It's like, my pleasure, dude. My pleasure.
It's fun to, like, I always felt like, and nothing to any of the other guys, but I felt like for some reason you and I, like, started to get a closer and closer bond every music video that we did. Like, I feel like we were always like, hey, like, yes, awesome, we're working together. And, like, I feel that way with everybody else. But I feel like you and I just started to get a little closer than everybody else.
We always, like, have that one conversation, like, out that's not work related, and it's just, like, it's always about, like, movies, I feel like, whenever we're filming. So it's just, like, I'm glad we took this time to, like, actually get to know each other more so.
100%, man. I'm glad we got to take it off of a video set into a podcast, and now it's being shared with everybody else. But yeah, I'm glad that we got to get even closer and become better friends, man. I seriously cannot thank you enough for making the drive here, taking the time, hanging out with me for 2 hours, and just telling me all the stuff that happened in your life.
Hell yeah, dude.
I appreciate it. So,
anytime.
Okay, before we officially wrap up and say goodbye, let's tell everybody where they can find you on the internet, or if they want to find Inferious, or they want to go check out these music videos we've been talking about, or anything you do, where can they find you on the internet?
All right. If you want to find me personally on the internet, find me on Twitter. My Twitter is @InferiousGabe. Also, the band Inferious. You can find us on any streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play if you got it. And you can definitely watch the music videos. It's pretty much all that's out is the work that Ross and Josh did for us. You can find that on YouTube or on our Facebook page. There's even some clips here and there on our Twitter. However, also, we do have some new shit coming out soon. Stay tuned. You really do not want to miss it, because when I say, bro, this is like, I can confidently say this is going to be like a next level for us musically. I think this is the next level. So if you like what you're hearing so far, make sure to follow us on all socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Inferious again. And stay tuned. Tell your friends.
Hell yeah, dude. Dude, this was so much fun. Thank you.
Of course,
Thank
man.
you so
Anytime.
Much, dude. We did it. We made a podcast.
Fuck yes.
We did it.
Podcast made. Friendship strengthened.
Yes. I love it. All right, a conversation that was a few years in the making, and I am very stoked we got to make it happen. Gabe is a good dude and a creative dude, and honestly, a good bit of that creativity I didn't even know about. And we actually got to hang out for like another hour or so after recording the show and talked about all of those creative ideas and so many more things. Lots of stuff that I can't wait to see Gabe pursue even more, and hopefully you feel the same after getting to know him a little bit better here today, or getting to know him in the first place in general. But there it is. There's another episode crossed off the list, another fun conversation had, and honestly, as Gabe said at the end, another friendship strengthened, which I love. Honestly, folks, that's the secret. If you want to get to know people better, literally just start a podcast. That's all it takes. It's a cheat code for making friends or making current friendships stronger. I'm telling you, I've now had 42 opportunities to try that out, put it to the test, and I'm here to tell you that it works. So yeah, if you want to have friends, start a podcast. If you want to be my friend, maybe tell people about mine. But for me, the quest continues in the next episode to make another friendship stronger, where I once again sit down with a guest that you may or may not know of, as they share their story that you for sure never heard. Thanks for listening, guys.